Hey, welcome back to House Human Services Committee. This morning, we are going to take a look at the latest draft of SB 39. And it is on our committee's website, folks, for folks who are following that along. And Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. And committee members, just so you know, we have Michelle for roughly about 35 minutes, okay? I want to make sure that she has time to get to her other obligation. So I think we should be able to take care of that in this matter.
Thank you. So for the record, Michelle Childs, Office of Legislative Counsel. Is it okay if I share the screen? All right. So I did highlight new language to kind of focus your attention on this. So this is your first pass at a draft for an amendment. I did a strike all because there were numerous amendments to a variety of sections. So looking at section 1 on the creation of the working group in subsection A, and that's just that it's created and what they're supposed to do. And you'll see the new language on lines 13 through 17, so that during its examination of mandatory reporting, the working group shall consider what services and strategies may be employed prior to any report of suspected abuse or neglect for the purpose of providing assistance to families before a situation rises to the level of requiring a report.
Get at what we were trying to say. And that just remind me, because it actually is relevant to this. I just forwarded you a follow-up to the witness that we had from yesterday from the Parent Child Center Network. There's a new data that's just come out, national data, and shows how Vermont ranks, and we're doing quite well in some things and then really not so well in other things. And one of those things is that we are way high on like off the charts high on the reports per thousand in the population. Mm-hmm. So I'll forward that to you, Michelle, too. I thought might be helpful for you.
Thank you.
So I think it would be helpful for members to take a look at that. This is
that email you forward from Ellen. From
yeah,
that was really interesting.
This is really trying to get at that. Do we have a statute and rules that are actually creating more reporting than is necessary? And is it, that's part of what we want this group to be looking at. So
it also, she included a number around that, like supporting, which we're not doing as well. Yeah, so I'm excited we're pursuing this.
That statistic? Like
in a finding? It's relatively, we can. We don't usually do findings in a place where it's creating a working group, but
I'm wondering if it would be helpful in that for those other members who have not taken a deeper dive like we have, it almost seems a bit odd that we're reconsidering mandatory reporting on abuse and neglect for children. It seems a little counterintuitive until you see a statistic that we're a national outlier and that it's not necessarily achieving the intended goals.
Well, for me, so I think that's fine. Yeah. For me, kind of the pieces are starting to fall into place, so why we spent so much time on Act 154 and why that. I understand more now that we've been working on this and seeing this information about why that was so important because of the volume of reports that they're getting and wanting to have a clear different paths, for substantiation versus just assessment. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's seeing this information and hearing from the witnesses that we've heard from, I think that's, it's kind of too bad that they didn't happen together almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's all right, we're doing it now, so.
With respect to the language, you're asking how we feel about the highlighted in yellow there at the bottom of page 1. I think it's good, but it has to ultimately work in context of other potential recommended reforms or changes. Because otherwise it still gets down to, before situation rises to the level of requiring a report. That's kind of the requiring a report is kind of the crux of, I think, how we got to this conversation to begin with. So it doesn't necessarily change what requires. So it very much has to work in concert with any other recommendations that come out of the working group.
Yeah,
To be
and-
successful.
I wonder if we consider what services and strategies may be employed prior to any report of but also I would think we'd also want to be considering ones, you know, like as the result of a report. Just, you know, you mentioned how we got to that, whether it's substantiation or assessment, and maybe how could we be supporting folks who are more in that not quite substantiation level, but in these other realm. And because my understanding is that is where we're dropping the ball a little bit as a state. And I think we're missing an opportunity to prevent that family potentially seeing a substantiation further down the line.
So I don't think there's any disagreement about any of that. I guess
Yeah.
my questions to committee are you recommending, do you have suggestions for language change? That's the stage we're at.
If I could make it just a suggestion is that we go through the whole amendment and everybody sees what's there. And then we circle back maybe to this idea, if you want to include some findings, I can create a new subsection A, because it sounds as though you're wanting to share your concerns.
We want,
But I don't know that necessarily that's the same as what your direct is. And so you may want to make a statement as to why you're embarking on this working group. But let's maybe go through and then see after you do that, kind of what sticks out of what you want to communicate prior to the language establishing the group, if that works for you.
sounds good.
Okay. So subsection B is the composition of the working group. And remember, you took a few folks out and you added some folks in. So the first change is to B1, and you added, we already had the Vermont Child, Youth and Family Advocate, but you said also or deputy advocate. On page 2, you added the Deputy Defender General from the Juvenile Defender's Office or their designee. On subdivision 5, you'll recall that the bill as it came over from the Senate had 2 members from DCF, and you reduced that down to 1 member for DCF. Subdivision 8, you added a certified law enforcement officer who has served on an SIU, and they would be appointed by the EAB. Subdivision 9 is a position co-chair of the Vermont Citizens Advisory Board. 10 is a principal appointed by the Vermont Principals Association. 11 is a representative of a designated agency that works in children's mental health, and they would be appointed by Vermont Care Partners. And then 12 and 13 are your members with lived experience. Remember, those were in the folks that they would consult with, and you've moved them up to being on the committee. So the first one is a member with lived experience as an abused or neglected child, appointed by the Vermont Youth and Family Council. And at the top of page 3, the second member with lived experience as an individual who was reported for suspected child abuse or neglect, and an investigation found the report to be unsubstantiated, and they would be appointed by the Parent Representation Center. So subsection C is with regard to who they're going to consult with, and the additions there are 8 and 9. So the Vermont Office of Racial Equity and the Attorney General's Office. Then with regard to the report in subsection D, you decided to extend the reporting time and have an interim presentation on or before April 1st of next year. And then the final report would be due October 1st of next year. And that kind of early date, just as a reminder, is because it'll be the second year of the biennium. And so you have much earlier drafting deadlines. So it gives you time to, take the report in, think about it, ask for legislation, and have that ready to go when the session starts. So page 4 in subsection E, and this is where I incorporated Representative McGuire's language. So in developing recommendations, working groups shall prioritize issues related to providing clarity regarding statutory definitions applicable to mandatory reporters, establishing consistency between statutory requirements and the Department for Children and Family rules, guidance, and training materials, identifying practical implementation challenges faced by mandatories under the current system. D is assessing and these are new ones that I added based on your committee discussion. D is assessing the appropriateness and efficacy of provisions in 4912 and 4913 regarding the definitions that are applicable to mandatory reporters, who should be a mandatory reporter, the process for mandatory reporting, the penalties for failure to report, and any exemptions from the reporting requirements. So that was going to Representative Cole's comments about trying to incorporate some of the things that are already kind of built in there and kind of saying, look at all these different kind of policy decisions within these statutes and whether or not that's what we should stick with. And then E is identifying alternatives to reporting suspected child abuse or neglect when such alternatives are in the best interest of the child. Subdivision 2 is, again, that was language from Representative McGuire. The working group is to avoid expanding its review into matters unrelated to mandatory reporting. Page 5, we get down to subsection F. I took out the language on what constitutes a quorum, and you have your new language there in subdivision F3, so that members who are not otherwise compensated by their day jobs for being at these meetings are entitled to the per diems and expenses that are provided for in our Title 32, and those monies are to come out of existing monies that are appropriated for DCF.
Okay, now people have a sense of the whole thing. And I'd like to move back to I'm gonna go with the membership first. The only thing I would do is like to reorder. If we can put the people with lived experience first on the list.
Sure.
That would be great.
Regarding those people, the one that's selected by the Vermont Child, Youth and Family Council, it's actually Child, Youth and Family Advisory Council. That's the one connected with the office with the advocate.
That was the ones that I was wondering if, like when we say Vermont Citizens Advisory Board, do we need to say the Citizens Advisory Board to?
I looked at that because I looked up the organization to see how they do it, and they just say that. So I'm happy to explain that because I know what you're saying, but when you go on the webpage for it, that's what it's named. That's what it's called. So I'm happy to do either if you want.
I mean, these are going to be people who know.
I think they know who they are.
They
I was thinking that, but
I didn't catch what you were saying.
Advisory number.
What
12,
page?
We are
Line 20 on
on 20 on page 2.
Oh, advisory is before
Advisory
council.
Yes.
Okay.
one question about standard practice with working groups, and even though we've been as thorough, I think as possible, and the list of people involved is in a good place. Like for folks who maybe with lived experience or in some other arena who aren't listed here, what is the avenue in which, if any, that they can present information to the group? And like, is that something that we have to outline in statute, that if they're not listed, they're still allowed to provide an input, piece of input?
We can add them to the consulting with other stakeholders, other individual providing opportunities for other individuals with lived experience or something like that. Or are you talking about?
Voice through one of those groups, hopefully.
Well,
Otherwise,
a lot of these are folks who represent those individuals, but they're not the
Yeah, and-
individuals themselves, I think.
And maybe even organizations that aren't included that would have a, you know, because of course we can't list everybody who we want to list in the working group, so, or that might have an opinion on this, that it's like valid, and so just thinking of, because I don't really know the process of how a working group collects information besides what's listed in the statute, is that sort of, if somebody would like to express an opinion, does that require?
There's nothing in here. There's a lot of leeway given to
Yeah.
these working groups. And if they want to take testimony from the public, they can do
Yeah.
that. Usually it's that if you want to require them
Yeah,
to hold a public hearing or to do things like that, you would include that. Otherwise, they're at liberty to really, you know, they use the charge and they say, "Hey, what do we need to do to get in this?" You could say, just as a hint, but not a requirement, you know, the working group may hold public hearings or take testimony from the public or interested parties, you know, at their discretion. But it's not required to say something like that. It's more whether or not I think you want to give them a nudge.
sure.
So
I also wondered about that because I had a note the first time we talked about this bill. Somebody said consult with others as necessary. And then when I'm looking at the language on subdivision C, it says in conducting its work, the work group shall consult with stakeholders, including, and I wondered if like saying something like you just said and like a combination of what Michelle said and others as necessary.
Yeah.
Can replace that including. Cause I feel like sometimes people miss the including, like.
right,
they
and
just look
or I
at
can
the
add
list.
it under the including and then just have
Right.
a kind of a catch-all. And then I'm sure you guys know from Katie and Jen being in here plenty of times, but including is not,
Yeah,
Right,
it's not
Including,
limited.
but
That
not
is
limited
just,
to.
it's just like, hey, we want to flag these
Yeah.
folks for you.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's not restrictive in any way.
But I like the idea of elevating it a little bit more under the list as well, saying like.
That's
either
fine.
You can have public hearings and take, testimony or hear from
I mean,
others.
they are covered by public meeting law. I mean,
Yeah.
these are
Yeah.
entities that are open public meetings. I mean, um. So, I think one of the things that, in this committee, we're struggling a little bit with is in some things related to some departments needing to be more specific about our intent. So for instance, like one of the things that I can think about is instructing the department to post meetings on its website, to post the availability of the meetings and opportunity to participate on the website. Was something we just did in a recent bill. I forget which one it was, but we're kind of feeling sometimes with some of these things that's necessary to try to have it be out there as much as possible. And for the members to be able to say, yeah, it's posted on the DCF website, you can go find it there.
Yeah.
So why don't we add sort of that general catch-all that you and Ray were talking about, Esme, and then also ask the department to post it on its website, notification of meetings, scheduled
Great.
meetings, scheduled meetings and minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions under that list of people to consult with or people who are members of the work group? Okay. Let's move to the duties that are the work product that we're expecting.
Ask a question before we move on. At the bottom of that page 3, the interim April 1st presentation. I guess, is judiciary going to see this bill before? I guess if they're included on the folks who are going to receive a presentation, can they opt not to if they don't? want an update next year. So better to include than not include, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, they probably don't need to be included in the update,
I agree.
huh?
I agree.
Yeah. Michelle, you're in judiciary more than we are, or have been. Do you have any advice about that in terms of the update and the presentation? I think the report should go to them, but, as well, but I'm just,
You know, I don't know. I just typically on these particular issues, I always include judiciary because of the potential criminal, charges. And then also they deal with obviously the court process with regard to Chin's cases, and then also kind of the procedural due process requirements within the internal. So like with the appeal, with your appeal rights and all of those kinds of things. So, and over the years, things around, so did your mandatory reporter bill come here or go to judiciary?
It's in judiciary.
Right, so that one, which is an amendment to 4913, is in judiciary now.
Yeah.
So, and it's specifically around the exemptions, for clergy
Yeah.
reporting. And so I would just say historically, it's been in both
yeah,
committees.
yeah.
And so
And
it
they
feels,
can-
yeah.
And they can providing an interim presentation for us, like we envision a PowerPoint and a sit down and a conversation. For
Right,
them, they can get copied on the PowerPoint.
Right, it
if
could
they
be,
don't want
right,
to.
there's no, as you know, these working groups are self-enforcing. And so I don't think it's really committing them to something
Okay.
big if you have them in there. And I think you do want to put them on notice that this is out there, that
Yeah.
this is coming, that the chair kind of cued in around. We always do a lot of planning in the fall and thinking about queuing stuff up and knowing that that report is coming in October, that's that sort of stuff. So I would say
Good.
it doesn't do any harm to leave them in
Yeah,
there.
context.
Sure.
Yeah.
good. Okay, so now let's move to, so that's the report and then that, so the top of page 4. People have any suggestions on language here or any input? We included in D as may, any exemptions from reporting requirements that current. That's great. We also talked about identifying alternatives to reporting.
Does C cover, on lines 9 and 10, identifying practical implementation challenges faced by mandatory reporters in complying with existing law? Does that cover the over reporting aspect of it? It's not. The challenge is, I think, in deciding whether they should be reporting or not. As opposed to this, the way I read it is challenges in complying with the law. How do I report? What do I report? And I don't think that's the issue that we're facing.
I wondered that too. I feel like we need to, I think it might be helpful to be a little bit more explicit around the over-reporting piece of it, because we're such an outlier.
I was just, maybe we should, add to this, reviewing national literature on
The rate,
the
I don't know.
rate
like-
report or, well, see what that was really just called, sorry.
Ellen's.
Yeah,
And the
Well,
finance
that's
section.
number 5, on the next page, we do have, consider best practices from other states.
I
Development of
think
a
this
recommendation.
kind of just, again, goes back to this issue of this is an important piece for you, but it's in the policy decision is embedded throughout. So I think if you do want to you could, work together and let me know and I can finesse it in terms of what you might want just for a short, kind of General Assembly finds, like as to your reasons as why you're going and asking for this review. of the mandatory reporting laws. And that's, you know, if you want to mention this report that you just mentioned earlier or things like that.
So it might be better to have a finding section.
I think,
Because that's-
I mean, I just hear you bringing up this issue in various contexts throughout the proposal. So you might just want to get it out there up front,
Set the
right?
stage.
Just set the stage. And, you know, it's not the only reason that you're doing that, but it is a big reason.
It's a big reason.
And so trying to, you know, that your interest is in trying to identify best practices in terms of who and when should someone be reporting, you know, to get to the outcomes that you want for children and families in terms of, you know, making sure that they're fully sufficient, but that there's not over-reporting and that people are clear on their obligations. And there's information that's clear to families as well who may be reported.
I
So,
wonder, how do folks feel about incorporating some of what Jubilee was talking about, that in the findings? Or does that muddy it up too much, like thinking about what, you know, examining what supports are available throughout this whole reporting process, either before or after, to make sure like families and.
That's not really a finding.
It's not a finding.
That's not a finding. We're gonna stick findings.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask Esme to look at the stuff that Ellen sent. And any other data that you might be looking at, but the particular thing that Ellen just sent was an update to national report. So
Yeah.
it seems like we have to be clear in the findings section about what the where the data comes from. So with a couple of findings related to that, if you would, and then I'll get those to Michelle today, if you could.
and I think, you know, again, having just something very short, because it is, you're pretty narrowly focused here. And then oftentimes, sometimes, I mean, I don't think people do it much and committees do it much anymore. It used to be like years ago, there'd be like 2-3 pages of findings you have to go through and everybody just skips them to get to like, well, what does this tell us to do? But I think if you can really outline your focus there, and then that will inform everything
Right.
in a section.
Okay, does that seem okay with people? All right. Okay. Any other, because I feel like the language is broad enough and specific enough for them to get to the details of the stuff that we have some concerns about, but also doesn't like tie their hands. But gives them some latitude, but doesn't send them off on a wild goose chase down this road that we've already been on with 154. So to really concentrate and hone in on what happens prior to and during the report, you know, at that report phase. Okay, so now we're gonna, we've gone through that, we're moving our way backwards. We're gonna go up to that section 1, that language that Michelle added. I think to me, with the findings, with a couple of findings, I think that provides the background of, you know, why we're examining this. And then this adds to that, I think.
And beyond what Ellen shared, are there particular avenues that I should be digging into?
I think that because it's what keeps coming up from witnesses and what we've had discussion over and over again about the high rate,
Yeah.
about how high Vermont is in terms of an outlier. I think that, and then, so the two that stood out to me was that, and then we're low in scoring in terms of the supportive services, on the supportive services side. So you can check and see if there's any further
Further.
research on those two items, but I would stick to those two
Okay,
items.
sounds good.
Okay, anybody have any other comments for this so far? Okay, all right, so just to summarize, Esme is going to pull together a bit of data, a couple of data points for findings, and get that to Michelle today. We are going to add under the consult with sort of a general catch-all of, you know, consulting with others. Some fancy language that Michelle's going to put together. And we kept the reporting as is. And we didn't make any changes, to paragraph E, little e. And members not otherwise compensated, that's all standard.
So I had a couple of other ones, which was up in, the composition was moving the folks with lived experience.
Oh, yeah, the top, yeah.
And then just making the language tweak on the advisory council.
Yeah.
And then also, down lower, I'll put in a subsection around DC app posting,
Posting on the, yeah,
meeting notices, agendas,
yes,
minutes, you want the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, required minutes, those types of things.
yeah, got that.
On the
On the
website.
website.
Mhm.
Okay. All good for now? All right, awesome. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's take a look. We do have a couple of witnesses coming in this afternoon. And it is on, it's a bill number, Lori.
That's important.
H57.
H, it's an H bill.
Yeah.
Up there, 574. Okay, and that's about the access to epinephrine in childcare centers. And so we've been asked by well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if it was from the Ed Committee or a member from Education, but I believe that it was cleared with the Education Committee Chair to send that bill to them. Because they want to include it in their miscellaneous ed bill. But I said we need to take some testimony on it first since it involves childcare centers. And so this afternoon, we are going to hear from Janet McLaughlin, and we are going to hear from an individual who lost a child as a result of not having this available to them. So I know we will all be sensitive to that. And then what I expect to do is, on Tuesday to move that over to them so they can add it to the miscellaneous ed bill. This is that time of the year when things move from place to place, and if people think they're important, they get added to other things. So that's what's going to happen with that bill. And then next week, just as an FYI, we'll pick up on S239 again, hopefully vote on that on Tuesday. We will be doing markup on S157, the recovery residence bill. We will either have another witness who's had either personal experience or professional experience on the current exclusion for religious members in the afternoon. Or if we don't have that, we'll, do we have a witness identified for the JRH 9?
I have a bunch that want to,
A JRH
but I haven't
9?
invited anyone yet. Yes.
Really? On the resolution? Oh, okay. So if not, that was, well, we're not gonna hear from all of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I just rewound to this morning's conversation, sorry. Okay, so we will either be doing S239 in the afternoon or JRH 9 in the afternoon. And then we will get Joe Reinert's thoughts about the Human Services Board report that we heard from AHS yesterday. And I understand that the Agency of Human Services is seeking to maybe have some of those recommendations make their way into H938. Which I will be honest about is not an appropriate place for them. Because I believe that we should be having, that was the result of a bill to amend the Human Services Board that Representative McFawn had. And that process, it involves many people, many programs. It can't just be an add-on to an existing bill. It needs sufficient time for testimony from witnesses who would be impacted by that change. So I'm just telegraphing what I think about that to people who are listening. We're also going to hear, hopefully, from some additional witnesses on S-157. We're going to get a walkthrough of S-193. That is the forensic facility bill that's down in judiciary. And we're going to be talking tobacco, S-198, next week. And we will vote out, I'm anticipating voting out S-157 on probably Thursday. And so we would be voting on that on the floor. It doesn't have any fees or anything, and there's no appropriation in it, so it's just policy, so it shouldn't have to go anyplace else. And we're starting our testimony on S-206, the early childhood educator licensure process. And we have a lot of people who want to testify on that bill. And just as a reminder, I said, if you have people in your communities who want to testify on that bill, please, but I'm going to ask you to please let Ray know, because she is keeping the proposed witness list for that bill. And we're going to take up S-243, which is an act relating to Vermont Language Justice Project. I'm leaving Thursday and Friday somewhat open after floor. I mean, because the ed bill is going to be on the floor. And so I think we're probably anticipating a lot of discussion about the ed bill on the floor. So I'm leaving that open. And then we are going to take a field trip next Friday afternoon to Marsh House, which is just up the road in Waterbury. That is going to be supported housing for, the reason that we're going is it's going to be housing for people with developmental disabilities within broader community housing. So, so we're going to take a tour, and just so people know, you have to wear closed-toed shoes. Just, and they probably will provide us hard hats.
Make sure we get a picture.
I know. It's still a construction site.
Oh, you know.
No, Lori is taking a well-deserved break, so
Will that tour be Friday afternoon?
it'll be Friday afternoon. Yeah, 1 p.m. And
How
then
far away is that from here?
Waterbury, it's on your way home.
Oh, Waterbury. I was thinking Berry. Waterbury. Oh, yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, it literally is 10 minutes. Yeah. it's
11.
easy.
I watch every day my science.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so I got a little bit extra time for lunch today, and
It's at 10.
hopefully you're watching what's happening for those who have bills downstairs. I mean, we all have bills, it's our committee bills, but watching your bills downstairs in Senator Lyons' committee. So I'm thankful that she is taking up our bills. But we have 7 bills down there for action, so,
Wow.
okay.